Hello. Hope you are having a great day. I've had one of those days that is both crazy and energizing, just kind of ping ponging back from one thing to another, which actually is when I'm at my best. So, anyway, thanks for listening in. And I am really excited about the topic for today because it is one that just makes so much sense to me and just like, I don't know. I think it's cool to think about. I think it's true. I think it's important. So, what we're talking about today is the fact that your career growth begins at the end of your comfort zone. Like, what does that mean? So, staying comfortable is safe, right? You're in a place where you know you can succeed. You know you've done it before. You know exactly what to do. It like feels comfortable. You got muscle memory there. And sometimes that's absolutely the right place to be. That isn't wrong, but it also isn't where you're going to grow. So you got to cross that comfort barrier, get out of your comfort zone, whatever words, make sense for you. You got to get on the other side of it in order to grow. Otherwise, you're repeating yourself. So I think the whole thing is to be aware of that and to think about when is the time you want to stay safe and when is the time that you can get over that comfort zone and you're matching up what you need to the situation. I would say, for the people that gravitate towards my message, the people in my community want to grow. And so you want to be out of that comfort zone more often than you're in it. But the whole point is you want to match up what you need with what you're actually doing. So, I remember a time when I was running a business within a corporation and I felt like I was starting to repeat myself a little bit. And so I really reflected on what did I need to do here? And I wrote on my calendar every day, what have you done today to be uncomfortable? And I talked to people about it and things like that. And I think it was really important because it was me not just being willing to get uncomfortable, but it was bring it on, seeking it out, really actively just going there because I knew I needed to grow. And it's funny because like I thought I, came up with this myself. And then when I was doing a little bit of research, I came up with a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt of do one thing every day that scares you. So I guess that was me channeling my inner Eleanor Roosevelt. So the reality is like, why do we get uncomfortable? Why is doing something we've never done before and moving into that unknown? Why is it so uncomfortable? It's just a human reaction. Like when we feel like we're under threat, and it goes back to the caveman days, like we were being chased by a grizzly bear. What happens is you develop that either fight or flight or freeze moment, right? That's your response to that threat. And our nervous systems can't tell the difference between whether a grizzly bear is actually chasing us or your boss gave you side eye and you're making this story up in your head about what it means and how awful you are, or you have a contentious meeting with a peer or something like that. The physiological reaction is the same. It's that fight or flight or freeze response. And so we just like need to accept that that's where we go, and that's one of the reasons that it feels so uncomfortable. But we can also accept the fact that we are not being chased by a grizzly bear. So, like, you can kind of have a talk with yourself and recognize that you're not under threat, and you could choose how you want to respond in that situation and unfreeze yourself. Okay. So, thinking about that, it's almost like we give ourselves permission to be human and just relax about it so that you don't then both feel uncomfortable and make yourself feel bad for feeling uncomfortable. You really can take it on. But here's the interesting thing. Like we tend to talk about it like super stressed or uncomfortable is the opposite of, safe and comfortable. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that one extreme or the other is actually your most effective zone. When you're, in order to be most effective, most productive, and, out there a little bit in terms of comfort, I read something that made so much sense to me. It was like the Goldilocks zone. Like your most productive place is not too stressed and not too safe. It's somewhere in the middle, because then you are moving forward, but you're doing it in a way that feels a little bit supportive. So don't think about this as you're completely trying to stay safe, or you're growing. It's I need a little bit, enough of that tension in order to really be moving forward. So I don't know. The Goldilocks zone sort of made sense to me on that one. So what are the things that you can do if you aren't sure if you're in the right place? Because there are some steps that we can take. I mean, one of the things that I do is I really try and recognize, it was one thing I told you I wrote on my calendar, what have you done to get uncomfortable? Okay, that was asking myself the question. But the truth is, if I believe it, I also have to have an answer. And so, just my own experience, every year I reshape how my business looks. I have new offerings from a coaching perspective or leadership perspective. I do new things for my own growth and learning. It's just what keeps me engaged and keeps it interesting. And so this year I thought a lot about what did I want to do? And I'm doing something different in terms of the comfort zone, because it happens to be a program around writing a keynote speech. And the reason that I'm doing it is because I'm totally uncomfortable about it. I am intentionally going into it to be uncomfortable. So it's way out there beyond, am I willing to get uncomfortable? I am actually seeking out that discomfort so that I'm in that growth zone. If that works for you, do that. Find the thing that you think may lead you to the next big thing that will help you to grow, and purposely get uncomfortable by taking it on. But there's some things that you can do short of that. One is to sort of reframe your relationship to discomfort, reframe the stress that comes along with it. I mean, in some ways, doing that like provides energy. If it, there's kind of is it anxiety? Is it discomfort? Is it just energy that you can use as motivation? But sort of reframing your relationship to that discomfort as something that maybe you need, kind of like what I'm doing right now, that may be helpful for you, because then it's not something that scares you, something that you're having to drag yourself to or tolerate. It's more something that you are intentionally taking on and anticipating and even looking forward to, in what might feel like a masochistic way. So that's one thing to think about, is to really just reframe your relationship to that stress, to that discomfort, and bring it on as something that, is really helpful for you. Another thing that you could think about doing is just taking some small steps. You don't have to take a huge leap off a cliff in order to get where you want to go. It might just be identifying what the next steps are and taking them. Every little step towards that goal gets you closer. And maybe in that Goldilocks zone for you, maybe enough of a stretch that you're growing, but still feels supportive and not crazy. So, the goal isn't to terrify yourself. It's to find that optimal zone of tension that helps you move forward in the most productive way. And here's the thing. If you try it and if it works for you, you keep going and it gets easier. And if you try it and it's feeling like it is crazy and it's totally unsupported and it's too dangerous, then take a step back and think about what the experience is like, and think about whether it's something that still is good for you to do. And then maybe put some support around yourself to take that next step. You don't have to do it alone. There's plenty of people that will help you to do it. But if you think it's the right thing for you, take on the hard, scary thing. That is what helps you grow. And then the last maybe tip that I'll provide is to celebrate your wins, like to recognize when you're making progress towards where you want to go, and give yourself credit for having done that hard thing. And think about what it was like. What did it feel like? What enabled you to succeed, so that you can build on that success and you can do things a little bit differently next time if it might be even more productive. So you can't build on success you don't acknowledge. So it's really important to acknowledge those wins. So, and it's interesting, another quote, I started with Eleanor Roosevelt. Now I want to bring in Abraham Maslow. A quote that really spoke to me in this regard from Abraham Maslow was, one can choose to go back toward safety or forward toward growth. Growth must be chosen again and again. Fear must be overcome again and again. And as you get better at growing and as you get more practiced at overcoming fear, those things do become easier. So do the hard thing. You can do it. There's lots of people around to help you. Okay, so in talking about this topic of needing to get out of your comfort zone in order to really experience career growth, I've gotten a couple questions from people over the last few weeks. So just wanted to bring those forward in case it's also a question for you. So how do I know when I've gotten too comfortable? There is no one answer. I don't have a satisfying answer to this question, but here's the thing. Ask yourself the question, what have you done that's made you uncomfortable lately? And it might be something that you've chosen or something that's been thrust upon you, but was it uncomfortable? Why? How did you take it on? What did you do that helped you to succeed? And in the event where you didn't feel like you were successful with it, what got in your way? What happened? And I'm asking this myself, in this case, the question very intentionally. This is not what should I have done? This is more if I'm faced with this situation again, how do I want to handle it? So I'm not piling on myself for what I did wrong. It's more, okay, I know more now. What do I want to do the next time that I'm faced with it? So how do you know when you've gotten too comfortable? You got to ask yourself, and you may want to talk it through with someone else. Why are you even asking the question? If you feel like you've gotten stagnant, if you're even asking the question, are you too comfortable? I would lean towards maybe you are. Another question I've gotten is, okay, so I intentionally pushed out of my comfort zone and now I feel like I'm over my skis. What do I do? I know that's hard because you're in the middle of it and you're not sure if you're on the right track and if you're doing the right things. I think in that situation, you kind of have two things to focus on. First of all, are you really out like about to fall off a cliff? You may have to fix the urgent situation, pull back on something, get some help, take a different course, or just stay the course and like double down and get through the thing that feels like a crisis, right? So that's job one. Then you want to think about what is your relationship to taking on something new. Did you do something reckless and you really did go out too far? Or is it just that things went awry? So fix the urgent problem and then think about how did that go and sort of do the military uses the term of the after action review. And think about how would you want to take it on again, if you're faced with it again, and what can you learn from the situation? And then the third question I got was, how do I create an environment of growth for my team as a leader without risking the success of my business? Because again, it is you don't want to be pushing people beyond their abilities. And yet you don't want to stay too safe because your competition is taking risks and is moving forward without you. So it's a hard thing to do. I think one of the best things to do about it, though, is to recognize it and talk to your team about it. Look at your team realistically. What are their capabilities? Do you have the right people in place? Are you setting the right goals? Are you, as a leader, encouraging, pushing them a little bit and making it okay for it not to be perfect? If you're setting an environment where things have to be perfect, it's not okay for them to take a risk because nothing is guaranteed in that case. But if you are processing the things that didn't go as planned, making sure as a team you're learning from them and doing things differently, you are creating an environment for people to take risks. If things are stagnant, you might need to process that with the team and talk about the ideas don't have to come from you as the leader. The ideas could come from the group together as what could we be doing differently? What could we be doing to generate growth? So I think sometimes the way you build that environment is by starting the conversation. So I hope that's helpful. If you have other thoughts, if you have other questions, send them my way. I'd love to address them. If you disagree with something I've said, I'd love to hear that too. So thank you so much for listening in and for your continued input. And I'll look forward to seeing you soon.